BRICS Pulse Show daily podcast by and for you.
All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. And today we're taking a close look at Brazil.
Brazil?
That's right, Brazil's job market, and it's absolutely booming.
Boom is right.
We're talking record-breaking numbers here under the Lula government, and we've got this insightful report from the BRICS joint website to really dig into this with us.
Should be interesting.
Yeah. So get this. Brazil just hit an all-time high in formal employment contracts, over 47.49 million.
Wow.
I know, right? So the obvious question here is, what's driving this incredible growth?
Well, I think the thing that really jumps out at you is that we're seeing over 1.83 million new formal jobs in just 1 year.
Just 1 year.
Yeah, between October 2023 and September 2024.
That's huge.
It's a 28.6% jump.
Wow.
To put that in perspective, we haven't seen this kind of sustained job creation in Brazil for years.
Yeah, that's what really makes it feel like a potential turning point
I think so.
for their whole economy. It's not just, a little blip.
Yeah.
This is a big deal. Yeah, and I think, too, it makes you think about the real-life impact. We're talking 1.8 million people.
1.8 million lives.
1.8 million families who are experiencing, hopefully a boost in their financial security and a chance to build, better lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not just about individual stories either, though.
No.
It goes way beyond that. This kind of job growth creates a ripple effect. It kind of invigorates communities, invigorates businesses, and really just the overall economic health of the whole nation.
Exactly. And so let's look into where this job creation is actually happening.
Okay.
The report highlights the services sector as a major driver. They had 128,354 new jobs just in September.
Wow, just September.
I know. So it's interesting because within services, we're seeing this surge in areas like tourism and hospitality.
Yeah, makes sense, right?
Makes sense with the post-pandemic.
Post-pandemic travel rebound.
Yeah, everybody wants to travel now.
Exactly. People are getting out there.
Yeah. But then we're also seeing growth in healthcare and education, which I'm guessing is from the government investments.
Yeah, probably spurred by those investments for sure.
In those sectors, yeah. And that all makes sense, with Brazil's recent economic recovery. As consumer confidence grows, people are spending more money on leisure and healthcare and education, so you have greater demand for these services, and then that obviously leads to more jobs.
Yeah, it's all connected.
It's all connected. Yeah, it's really interesting how these factors influence each other.
For sure.
But what about other sectors?
Right.
What about other sectors? I know the report mentions some pretty strong gains in industry and commerce, too.
Oh, yeah. Those sectors added almost 105,000 jobs in September.
Wow.
So manufacturing areas like consumer goods and technology, that's seen a comeback, likely thanks to government incentives.
To get people to buy.
Yeah, for domestic production, to keep it in the country.
Interesting.
And even construction is picking up,
Really?
reflecting all those investments in infrastructure projects from both the public and private sectors.
So it's really cool because it's not just one sector that's carrying the weight.
Right.
It's broad-based growth across multiple areas, which that's a really good sign, right?
Definitely a positive sign for the overall economy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not just concentrated in one region either.
No, it's happening all across Brazil.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing new jobs popping up everywhere, from those bustling cities in the southeast to, the agricultural areas.
Like the South.
Yeah, the South.
Yeah.
And of course, some areas are doing better than others.
Right.
Like Sao Paulo with its 57,067 new jobs.
Wow.
Yeah. But that's likely due to its established infrastructure and its, diverse industries.
Right. They've got a lot going on.
But what I think is really interesting is that all 5 major regions in Brazil
All of them.
are seeing gains, which suggests that this growth is really being fueled by nationwide trends.
Yeah. It's not just a regional thing. It's across the board.
Exactly. So we've got this incredible job market expansion happening across sectors and across regions. And the report attributes a lot of this success to policies implemented by the Lula government. So can we dive into that a little bit? What are some of the key policies that might be at play here?
Well, one of the biggest things is the government's focus on boosting domestic manufacturing.
Okay.
Through tax breaks and making regulations a little bit easier to deal with. They've also put a lot of money into infrastructure projects, which, as we talked about, creates jobs in construction and all those related industries.
Makes sense.
And then we can't forget the impact of social programs. Things like those conditional cash transfers, which really support low-income families,
right,
and encourage them to, focus on things like education and healthcare. And that's a big part of bolstering the workforce and just making sure that people have money to spend.
Yeah, so it seems like it's a pretty multi-pronged approach,
Yeah.
targeting different aspects of the economy.
Hitting it from all sides.
Yeah, but is this growth sustainable in the long term? Are there potential roadblocks that we need to think about?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, while the current trends are positive, maintaining this momentum is going to require really careful management. Things like global economic fluctuations, commodity prices, even internal political stability. All of those things could have a real impact on Brazil's continued growth.
That's a really good point. It's not just about celebrating the wins. It's also about understanding, the complexities.
The bigger picture.
Yeah, and the potential challenges that might be ahead. And I think there's another really key element in this report that I found fascinating, and that's this emphasis on the formalization of employment.
Oh, yeah.
The report highlights that there's been a really big increase in formal employment contracts. So can you explain what that actually means and why it's such a big deal?
Sure. So formal employment means that workers are protected by those labor laws.
Yeah.
They get benefits like Social Security and healthcare.
Yeah.
And they have legal recourse if something goes wrong, if there's a dispute or something like that. This is different from informal work,
Right.
which a lot of times lacks those legal protections and those benefits and that stable income.
So it's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And this shift towards formal employment in Brazil, I think, is really significant because it shows that the job market is moving towards being more regulated and more secure.
Right. And that can lead to, more stability
Absolutely.
for workers.
Greater financial stability.
Yeah, and increased tax revenue for the government and a stronger social safety net for everybody.
Exactly. Everyone benefits in the long run.
So it's not just about having a job, it's about having a job with security
This security,
and benefits. And that can really make a big difference
it can transform lives.
in a person's life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you say this is a big step towards a more equitable and sustainable labor market?
Oh, absolutely. I think
Yeah.
so. But it also brings up some important questions like, does this shift mean that informal work is declining?
Right.
And if so, are there enough support systems in place to help people who might be moving from informal to formal work?
Those are really good points because we need to understand the dynamics of this transition and how it's affecting different people, as Brazil goes through this period of, amazing economic transformation.
Yeah, we need to make sure everyone benefits.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to get into next. So stay with us. Okay, so we've talked about this impressive job growth. We see the booming sectors and, this shift towards formal employment. But I kind of want to zoom in a little bit here and talk about what this actually means for, the average Brazilian worker.
Yeah, their day-to-day life.
Exactly. What are they actually experiencing?
Well, for a lot of Brazilians, this job market boom means they're seeing more opportunities.
Yeah.
For career advancement, higher wages, a better standard of living.
That's great.
It's like, for example, let's say someone's working in the tourism industry in Rio de Janeiro.
Okay.
They might find that they have more job options now,
Right.
So they can try to negotiate for better pay and benefits.
They have some leverage now.
Exactly. Or let's say you have a young person who's just entering the workforce in Sao Paulo.
Right.
It might be easier for them to find a job, in the field that they want to work in.
Yeah.
So that could lead to, greater financial independence and, just personal growth.
Right. So it's like a positive feedback loop.
I think so.
More jobs, more opportunities, more prosperous workforce,
That's right.
Stronger economy.
Yeah, exactly. But it's important to keep in mind that, the benefits of this boom aren't necessarily spread out evenly.
Right.
While some sectors and regions are doing really well,
Yeah.
others might still be lagging behind.
Still catching up.
Yeah. And then there's the issue of income inequality.
Uh-huh.
Are the gains from this growth reaching everyone?
Right. Are all boats rising?
Exactly. Or are some groups being left behind?
Those are really important nuances
Yeah,
to consider
absolutely.
when we're assessing the real impact.
The full picture.
Yeah, so it's not just about those big numbers, it's about understanding how this growth is impacting different communities and, demographics.
Right.
Are there specific groups that are benefiting more? Are there regions that are still struggling?
Those are great questions, and it's important to look at that level of detail. For example, the overall unemployment rate has gone down,
Okay.
but youth unemployment is still a big problem.
Yeah.
And certain rural areas, they might not be seeing the same job growth as those big urban centers.
Right.
So understanding those differences,
Base disparities.
yeah, it's super important for policymakers, if they want to make sure that everyone benefits from this economic boom.
Right. So it sounds like there's a real need for some targeted policies and initiatives to address these specific challenges.
Absolutely.
To make sure no one is left behind.
But no one left behind.
Yeah. But overall, it's pretty hard to deny that, Brazil's job market is having this remarkable resurgence.
It's really impressive.
It's really impressive. And this kind of makes me wonder, what does this mean for, Brazil's overall economic outlook?
Yeah, that's a big question.
Big picture.
Well, I think this sustained job growth is a really strong indicator that Brazil's economy is resilient.
Uh-huh.
And it has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
It shows that investors are feeling confident again, both people in Brazil and people from other countries.
Foreign investors.
It seems like Brazil's in a good position for long-term growth and development. They might even reclaim their spot as the top economic force in Latin America.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
That would be huge for them.
It would.
So that's a really exciting prospect. But as we said before, it's not without its challenges.
Right.
Maintaining this momentum is going to require some really careful, maneuvering through all these global economic headwinds, and they need to be responsible with their fiscal policies.
Right.
And they got to continue investing in education and infrastructure.
Those are all key ingredients.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that, economic growth, while obviously super important, is just one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, it's not the whole story.
Real progress is also about addressing those social inequalities, making sure things are environmentally sustainable and, fostering that culture of innovation and entrepreneurship.
Right, creating an environment where those things can thrive.
Yeah, so it's about creating a society where all Brazilians can really participate in and benefit from this economic resurgence.
It's about making sure everyone has a chance to succeed.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to look at this, job market boom, not just from an economic point of view,
numbers,
but also from a social and a political point of view. How is this growth impacting different communities?
Yeah.
What are the long-term consequences for, social mobility and political stability?
Those are complex questions.
They are really complex questions.
And they require a lot of thought and, ongoing analysis. We can't just celebrate the positive numbers. We need to dig deeper and really understand what this transformation means on all these different levels.
Exactly. And that's why conversations like this are so important.
Yeah.
By exploring all the different sides of this, the challenges, the potential pitfalls, we can really get a better understanding.
A more complete picture.
Yeah, of this complex issue.
Absolutely.
So to our listener, I really encourage you to think critically about this job market boom in Brazil. Don't just, take the headlines at face value.
Dig a little deeper.
Dig deeper, ask questions, consider the bigger picture.
The context.
What are the potential ripple effects on other parts of the economy? How might this growth affect, social dynamics and political discourse?
Those are all great questions to think about.
They are. And remember, this is a story that's still unfolding.
It's a work in progress.
And your understanding of it can actually contribute to how this story is told.
Yeah, your perspective matters.
And who knows, maybe you'll even uncover some insights or connections that we missed.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of knowledge. It's a collaborative journey of discovery.
Exactly. We're all learning together.
And now there's one more aspect of this job market boom that I find really interesting, and it kind of goes back to something we touched on earlier.
Okay.
This whole idea of the rise of formal employment and, the potential decline of informal work.
Right, that shift.
This shift could actually reshape, the very fabric of Brazilian society.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. Yeah. So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So, informality has been a defining characteristic of Brazil's economy for decades.
Yeah.
It's a complex thing, with deep historical and cultural roots. And it's been a source of both strength and vulnerability for millions of Brazilians.
Makes sense.
And now as the formal sector grows,
Yeah.
we're maybe seeing a paradigm shift.
Yeah. It's like watching a cultural and economic evolution.
In real time.
Yeah. Happening right before our eyes.
It is pretty fascinating.
It is. So what are some of the potential consequences of this shift?
Well,
What opportunities does it present?
yeah, and what challenges does it pose?
That's what we're going to explore
In the final part.
of our deep dive. Okay, so we're back and ready to really unpack this whole idea of Brazil's economy shifting away from informal work.
Yeah, it's a fascinating transition.
It is. So what could this mean for, Brazilian society as a whole?
Well, one thing is that it could bring greater economic stability, and predictability.
Okay, how so?
A larger formal sector means the government has more reliable tax revenue,
Right.
which they can then invest in things like public services and infrastructure.
Which then creates a better environment.
Exactly, for businesses. And then that leads to more economic growth and even more job creation.
Right. So it's like you're building a stronger foundation for the entire economy.
Exactly.
But what about the individuals who have really relied on informal work for so long?
Yeah.
How is this shift going to affect them?
That's a really important question. And I think, the transition is not going to be easy for everyone.
Right.
Some people might have a hard time adapting to formal employment.
Right.
Like all the paperwork and the taxes and the regulations.
Right. It's a lot more.
It's a whole different world.
Yeah.
And some might find it hard to get those formal jobs because they don't have the right education or training.
Right. So it's not as easy as just saying, informal work is bad, formal work is good.
It's definitely more complicated than that.
There's a lot more to consider.
Yeah, it's about understanding the value that informal work has brought to Brazil while also recognizing that we need better protections for workers.
Right.
And the key is making this transition as smooth and equitable as possible. Providing support for those who might get left behind.
So what are some potential solutions? What can policymakers do to make sure this shift benefits everyone in Brazil?
I think it takes a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah. Okay.
Investing in education and job training is huge.
Yeah, to give people the skills they need.
Exactly, to compete in that formal job market and then simplifying the bureaucracy.
Right, make it less of a headache.
Exactly, and reducing the costs of formalizing businesses.
To make it easier for people.
Yeah, to make it more attractive for them to operate legally, and that creates more formal job opportunities.
Right.
And of course, strengthening social safety nets.
Yeah.
So that people have some support if they hit a rough patch during this transition.
It's about creating that more inclusive environment.
Absolutely.
Where everybody has the chance to succeed no matter where they come from or what their work experience has been like.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also important to remember that informal work is not going to just vanish overnight.
No, it's been around for a long time.
Yeah, it'll probably still be part of the Brazilian economy for years to come.
For sure.
But the goal is to create that balance,
A healthy balance.
Yeah, a sustainable ecosystem where both formal and informal work can exist and contribute to Brazil's overall prosperity.
I think that's the ideal scenario.
So we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
This is a complex issue.
It is.
And it's going to continue to shape Brazil's economic and social landscape, for years to come. And I think as we wrap up this deep dive, it's important to emphasize that we've really only scratched the surface here.
Yeah, just a glimpse.
There's so much more to explore and so much more to learn about, this incredible transformation happening in Brazil.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it so fascinating.
This is an ongoing story.
A dynamic process.
With so many different angles to it. And we really encourage you, our listener, to keep digging.
Yeah, don't stop here.
Go deeper into those specific policies. Look at the regional differences. Find those human stories that are behind all these statistics.
Those are the ones that really bring it to life.
Think about the ripple effects this is going to have on Brazilian culture, politics, society as a whole.
Yeah, the big picture.
What opportunities are going to come up? What challenges will they face? And how will this new job market in Brazil affect their role on the global stage?
These are all questions to keep in mind.
They are. And remember, this is a story that's still being written.
So your thoughts and perspectives matter.
So keep those minds curious, keep asking questions, and most importantly, keep learning.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.
Until then, happy exploring.